The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Welcome to the Empower Hour with Greater Nashua Mental Health. The Empower Hour will provide information and support about mental health, substance use, and behavioral health. Our goal is to share inspiring stories about transforming lives, to strike down stigma, and to encourage our community to reach out and get help when needed. Mental health is part of all of our lives. It's time we talk about it. I'm Dr. Cynthia Whitaker, President and CEO of Greater Nashua Mental Health, and it's time to get empowered. Welcome to the Empower Hour with Greater Nashua Mental Health. I'm Dr. Cynthia Whitaker, the President and CEO at Greater Nashua, and we're delighted to have you here with us today. We're recording this in May, which is Mental Health Awareness Month, and we are delighted that this month we are able to have with us a person with lived experience who is a peer support specialist with us at Greater Nashua Mental Health. Welcome, Nick Perricone.
Thanks, Cynthia, for having me on.
Oh, I'm so delighted that we're here today to talk about the importance of having people with lived experience or peers as part of people's treatment and what that can mean for people. So I'd love if you could just start with how you got here. You know, what's part of your story that brought you to being a peer support specialist?
So thanks. I guess it started for me in college. I started to have some mental health difficulties around my senior year, I guess. And, you know, I ended up kind of turning in some papers late, taking some incompletes, but I managed to graduate. But I got home and things just kind of, I was stuck for a while, and I ended up kind of being hospitalized and just spending a lot of time in my 20s, just really kind of struggling, feeling really overwhelmed and just trying to cope with it the best I can. Not always, you know, the healthiest coping strategies, but what changed it, a few things changed it for me. One was, you know, the care I got from therapists, clinicians. And then another part was finding a bunch of people who had been through similar things that I had been through. And it was this moment I had where it was wow, I'm not alone. There are people a lot just like me, really, who are moving forward in their lives, who are, you know, transforming themselves, and that's called peer support when we kind of help each other do that. And so discovering that was an important piece of my journey.
So having that knowledge and that support of there are people like you on that journey who'd been where you'd been and then learned tools to improve their mental wellness and continue to thrive. Would you call it inspiring? It sounds like maybe it inspired you.
It was inspiring, yeah. It was almost refreshing too. It was you know, hearing perspectives of people who had actually been through the system and who had really improved their lives, and who had, like you said, learned the tools to kind of to come through these things. And it was inspiring, definitely. And you know, a lot of it was in person at peer support centers and at recovery meetings, and some of it was online too. Found some peer support resources online, and it was very inspiring, yeah.
What I love about what you just sort of brought up was how there's a continuum of peer support, right? So some might be online, some might be in formal meetings, some might just be in going to a center or peer support agency for help.
Yep.
It sounds like you utilized all of those.
I guess so, yeah. Over the years, you know, not all at once. I kind of had to dip my feet in a little bit at first, get comfortable just with maybe one peer support center. But the more I realized I really loved it, I I met some just really amazing people through peer support, and the more I wanted to keep doing it, and the more I found it was benefiting me, the more I just wanted to keep doing it. So
you get involved, you dip your toe in more and more, you like it, and then you ended up working at a peer support agency?
Yeah, that's what happened. I guess I stuck around and, you know, started to create relationships with people, just peer-to-peer, just being with people. I would try to go every day because at the time I wasn't working, obviously, and I had a lot of time, so I would kind of spend my time going to the peer support center and volunteering, helping out where I could, whether it was, you know, with the garden or you know, doing check-ins, different kind of activities they do at the center, and then they asked me if I wanted to start working, and I was excited, and they offered me training, peer support trainings, which were just so important to my professional development. So yeah, I could talk more about the trainings because they've really, I think, the trainings I received through the state and while I was at the Peer Support Center Hearts, I think they prepared me for what I'm doing now on the ACT team at Greater National Mental Health, doing peer support specialist work, the intentional peer support core training. You know, it was nothing less than life-changing, you know, to learn the intentional peer support framework and to apply it to my life and to my relationships. And of course, RAP and WHAM and the different trainings that peer support specialists get. But yeah.
So I think some people might not realize that, just like, you know, therapists or people that are trained like I am have certain models that we use with clients. Peer support has models and trainings too. So I think that's really important that you brought that up, because I don't think everybody realizes. Right.
It's not like, you know, just some guy from the street, you know, that we're gonna have, you know, hire to support people. It's no, we peers have been trained. You know, we have, you know, skills, peer support skills, and we draw from our lived experience to support the people we work with. But, you know, we've been trained in different peer support modalities that have, you know, been shown to be effective.
All right. How to support somebody in the most effective way, in the way that helps them the most possible, I guess.
Yeah. And one of the things that makes peer support kind of different is it's not just about the individual, like it's about the relationship that you form with people. So like I would say it's about us. It's not just about like me or the person I'm working with. It's about what we can do together, how we can use the relationship as a vehicle for transformation or change or recovery.
But one of the reasons why it was really important to me to kind of highlight peer support soon, like this is only our 5th episode of the show, was I really feel like there's something very empowering when people engage with peer support.
There is, yeah. I think, you know, self-care is great and can go a long way, but we also need to take care of each other. We need community care, and I think peer support, you can kind of look at it as just mutual aid, just people taking care of each other and sharing what they've learned and you know, drawing from their lived experience, and it's very empowering, you know. Just to know you're not alone, I think, is empowering.
Yeah.
At least for me, it was, because, you know, I've been, you know, diagnosed with psychosis and schizophrenia, and like some scary words, like when you're going through that, and you feel like I must be the only one out there who's going through this. And then you find, no, there are people all around you, just like you, who have gone through some of what you've gone through, or a lot of what you've gone through, and they're doing fine. They're doing well, actually, and that can be empowering for sure.
Right, to realize treatment can work, and you know, getting skills and using them, even though it's not always easy, can be successful.
Yeah, and to like take charge of that too, like not just to be sort of like a recipient of it, but to own your own, however you want to call it. I use the word recovery, but some people use different language. But like to own your experience, and you know, that's to me, like, that's empowerment.
Yeah, right. Like we're accountable, we're responsible. So a therapist, a treatment provider, even a peer can give us advice or suggest certain things, but really we're each individually responsible for figuring out how to move it forward.
And you know, that's part of the peer support modalities I use. Personal responsibility is a key concept in RAP. Accountability is one of the competencies in IPS, intentional peer support. So yeah, absolutely.
So what does it look like for you now? So you said you're a peer support specialist now at Greater Nashville Mental Health on our ACT team, which is our assertive community treatment team. So how is that the same or different from what you did when you worked at the peer support agency?
That's a really good question. It's different in that, I guess, intentional peer support, which I'm trained in, as I said, is it's almost more akin to community organizing than providing a service. It's you know, mutuality is one of the key tasks of intentional peer support. So it's been an interesting experience, like applying that to a clinical setting where I am providing a service, and learning to navigate that and negotiate the power imbalances that kind of creates. You know, it's different when, you know, you're sort of in a setting where you're all kind of going there for support, and you're all looking for the same thing. But on an ACT team, it's different. You know, some folks are there, you know, because they're court ordered to be engaging in treatment, and you know, as a peer, I want to level the power imbalance as much as I can, because peer means equal to me. It's right. We're equals. We're learning together. So even the idea of like providing a service is almost like it's tricky when you're working in peer support. But luckily, I mean, honestly, I've had a lot of support from the whole ACT team and from the whole agency in terms of like allowing the peers, people with lived experience, to really define what peer support is and how it's going to look in a clinical setting. That's
I almost feel like it's both a blessing and a curse at the same time, right? Like, yeah, we've allowed you to create it, and you have to create it, right?
Yeah, but it's more of a blessing, I would say.
Oh, come on, I'm happy to hear that. I'm happy to hear that, because I think our system as a whole in the state we know we need peers. We can see how impactful they are on folks that are coming for our services and who are experiencing challenges with their mental wellness. But we haven't done a very good job of defining that, you know, that conflict you were just talking about. Well, how do I stay in equal and mutual when I'm providing a service?
Exactly.
And so I think we need to rely on, you know, people that have the experiences like you, that have been in both settings, to help us say, okay, how do we make this work? Because we want the benefits, and we are doing it in a clinical setting.
Yeah, but the cool thing is it works pretty well, I think, from what I've seen. You know, the clinical support and the peer support working together, when there's mutual respect between the peers and the clinicians. And I think it can be actually a really great thing, and for the people we serve too. I think.
Do you have any examples of where you've seen kind of yourself as the peer, or even one of the other peers working alongside with a clinician to like really bring about a better outcome for a client? Maybe even multiple examples probably pop into your head.
Just, if I can be an advocate, that's, we're all advocates. I work with a team of advocates, but, if I sort of feel like I have a perspective, like I've been working really closely with someone, I can sort of, speak for them in team meetings and try to advocate for their goals in the treatment. I think, but like I said, I work with a team of advocates. I'm not the only one doing that. We're all trying to do that, and but I think people respect when I'm honest and mutual with them. That people open up to me. So and then to try to just preserve that relationship and to try to use that relationship for to help them with their goals, what they want to work on, what they want to move towards.
One of the things I've heard and I've also observed is sometimes people who are resistant to help, and maybe they have a symptom of mental illness that makes them not realize they have a mental illness, right? Some of our more severe illnesses, that's a symptom. That they are able to find a way to engage often the initial treatment or that initial step with a peer more than with a clinician. So it kind of helps people maybe dip in that toe, like you were talking about, even for yourself. Maybe. Do you have a sense of why that is, or have you observed the same thing?
I can even say for myself, when I'm sick, I don't know I'm sick. It's sort of thing. And when I was going through, what I was telling you about in my 20s and throughout, some of that time in my life, it was a gradual kind of like coming to terms with what was going on with how I don't think of it as an illness, but how I'm different, how I perceive the world and how I am in the world. But I think peers can definitely be a bridge for people in terms of treatment. And I think it's maybe because we're not basing our models on diagnosis or psychiatric models. It's about connection, and that could mean like what kind of music do you like, or connecting through experiences rather than symptoms. We relate to each other based on experiences, not symptoms. So I think that makes it easier for somebody to be like, for me at least, I was able to open up more when people were just sort of relating to me like from human to human, and not from like an expert provider to like a client kind of relationship.
One of the things I think that the mental health field has a history of, if you go pre-1960s, there weren't community mental health centers. There weren't community providers.
Right.
If you had challenges with mental wellness, you were hospitalized. And so I think a lot of people fear the clinician is going to hospitalize them, is going to, label them and put them away. And, there's still a lot of that kind of lingers in fear, instead of really understanding there's a lot of different ways people can get support and help with whatever they're dealing with. I mean, many people don't even need the help of a clinician. And then for other disorders, certainly we want people to have that help because, there's skills that we can give people. So, yeah, it's kind of interesting to think about.
Yeah, it is. I think you said it right. There's this fear, this sort of double bind that patients are in, where we have to be honest to get help. But if we're honest about some of our symptoms, it can there can be consequences like losing our freedom. But it's not like I think the system has changed. I don't know what it was like. I'm 31. When I went through my hospitalizations, it was like it was not at a time when sort of like some of those old messages, like you have to limit what your goals and your hopes are. Like I was never told like you can't go back to work or like you can't get a job. Like so I think times have changed and but yeah, I hear what you're saying.
So that helps with that bridge, because I think the most important thing is that peers don't judge. But as a clinician, I'm almost forced to judge, right? You said I have to come with a diagnosis and what are those symptoms, and so it just has a different feel to it.
It does, yeah. And both can be helpful in my experience. I don't want to speak for everyone, but in my experience, both have been really helpful. But I've needed both. I couldn't just have one without the other. I need that connection, and I also need medication. And like, yeah, my diagnosis has helped me access support, which I need, and even peer support, to connect with other people who have the same diagnosis or have been through similar kind of challenges. So yeah.
One of the things we've danced around a little bit, it's come up a couple of different times, is language.
Yeah.
Right, you said you don't think of it as an illness.
Yeah.
Right, and I think other people, it gives them comfort to call it an illness. And I know language is part of the intentional peer support model. So I'd love your thoughts on how important the language we use is.
It's in IPS they say language creates reality. Like the way we talk about something really. It affects how we treat it, how we view it, and how we respond to it. I think clinical language is a tool that can be really effective when you're working in a clinical setting to communicate and to advocate and to treat the people we work with. And then I think it also has limitations, and it can pigeonhole, or it does pigeonhole people. And I think my role on the team is to sort of shake things up a little bit and say, hey, is there another way we could frame how we're talking about this person and what they're going through, and then when I say that, then it leads to a conversation where, well, what are we trying to say, and how are we serving this person's needs? And I think it makes me a better peer, and I think I hope it helps the clinicians kind of be more precise about what we're trying to accomplish. And I don't know, it's one of my favorite parts about working on an ACT team is having those conversations, And
what I hear when you talk about that is, it's not that it's like a right or wrong. It's not like there's this, thou shalt never say these words. It's more, what's the intention or the purpose of the conversation?
Exactly.
Right? So if I got to write a report, well, I got to write a diagnosis. But if we're having a conversation, do we need to refer to that person by their diagnosis? Of course not. Right. Right?
And yeah, exactly. There's no right or wrong. And it's not like, I do advocate for certain recovery-based language, but it's not like we just replace one set of terms with another and that makes everything okay. That wouldn't really, it's more about the intention, like you said.
Yeah.
And then also how, when we talk to the people we work with, not to use jargon, to make sure we're on the same page kind of, and we're using language that each person understands and finds respectful. That's another thing I'm advocating for. And peer support has its own jargon, which we have to be careful not to use when working with people. But not to use that jargon, I guess. Yeah.
It just makes me think too about, there's a lot of respect for people, or compassion, non-judgment is what I hear. And so, like, instead of assuming somebody understands my jargon, maybe making sure, is it okay if we use this word, or what word would you prefer we use, or, you know, just kind of giving people that ability to identify for themselves.
Exactly. And I think for any group of people, we want to pay them that respect, like to define how they want to be talked about, what respect means to us. You know, I think it's, yeah.
Yeah. It's just really important. Just the language and the compassion and the non-judgment, it's just really important. So if somebody's watching, listening right now, who's either struggling themselves or maybe is a family member of somebody who's struggling, what might you say to them? Like, is there something somebody could learn from all of your experience?
When I was struggling, I just wanted somebody to empathize with me, to listen to me, and to just be there with me in my pain. And that's what I try to tell people when someone says, "Hey, this person's struggling. How do I help them?" And normalize it, because we all go through struggles. And yeah, I do want people to know that there is help out there, and it doesn't mean you're going to get locked up. And you know, the more we can take care of each other in a community, as a community, we're all going to be better off. You know, and just use what resources are available to you. And there's a lot out there that people might not know about. A lot of people don't even know that we have peer support agencies or crisis respite centers, peer respite centers, as alternatives to kind of hospitalization and other, you know, things that people want to avoid. Yeah, so.
In there, I heard not jumping to fixing.
Right.
Right. There. You started with like the empathize and like, because
exactly.
I know as a parent or a family member, that's hard for families, because, you know, I'm sure your parents didn't want to see you in pain, and they wanted to figure out how to help, but yet you were also like, can somebody just acknowledge this is hard?
Right. Yeah. No. Exactly. You said it. That's something that I hear in trainings a lot, is you don't want to just jump right to problem solving or to try to fix the situation, although that is our nature. We want to make things better for people. But really, you know, I just try to speak from my experience. Like, yeah, I wanted someone to acknowledge that, you know, I was in a tough place, and I think peer support can give you that sort of validation that you're not alone, and so can anyone. You know, anyone can do that.
Yeah. What I know is we're giving a name to something that's always been,
right,
and we've always known has helped.
Right.
And I think there are also a lot of people who are in the field that are of, you know, a generation, my generation, or even that were, you know, a generation older than I, who are in the field because of lived experience, but never told anybody. Right? And it's kind of refreshing to know we can talk about it. You can still provide help and services, and in fact, maybe even better help and services to individuals because of your experience.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be this binary, right? Like you're either sick or you're well, and like it's more of a spectrum, and we're kind of moving around on it every day in different ways. And you know, I think that binary is sort of reinforced to us. Like I was, you know, reading this article, I think it was by Sacha de Brule, but he was saying, like, when we go into a waiting office for a doctor, it's like there used to be the sick waiting room and the well waiting room, you know? So it's sort of, we get this message like it's one or the other, but it's not. And yeah, you can totally, you still have something to offer. Helping people, you know, even if you are sick or even if you are struggling, you still have something to offer. And I think that in and of itself is beneficial to people to be able to help other people, to give back,
right.
You know?
Right. One way to support your mental wellness is to have connections and giving back to other people.
Right.
So if we make that different, you know, that, as you said, binary, well, if I'm sick, I can't help people, then you might miss an opportunity to work on your wellness.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, and that's certainly not something we want. We want to give everybody as many tools as they can.
Exactly.
To work on their wellness. And I think, you know, supported employment's another place where that comes up.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you said you were lucky enough to not have gotten that message of, well, you'll never work. But sadly, many people have
right.
gotten that message, and that's just not true.
No, it's not. Supported employment, it's an evidence-based practice, right? You know, it works, and you know, it's not like it doesn't have to be a recovery job either. It can be what you really want to do and what
right.
you're passionate about, and
right, it could be in computers or cooking or whatever exactly. Anybody has a passion for.
Exactly. Yeah.
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 I think that's the other thing that I really appreciate about intentional peer support is it's positive focused, right? Like it's not deficiency focused.
Right.
Like a lot of clinical work, even though we try to be positive, right? I mean, to get paid, we got to give somebody a diagnosis. To you know, substantiate the need for services, we got to talk about all the things you can't do. You know, and then usually there'll be a little, okay, what are your strengths? And it's this, you know, 1 or 2 sentences instead of, you know, tell me what your superpower is. What are you really good at? And, you know, building from there.
Yeah.
Because personally, kind of having observed you, I think your superpower is connecting with people.
Thanks.
Because and just making people feel seen and heard.
I try, you know, that's I want people to feel comfortable and feel like they can talk to me, and it helps me, you know. But I also work with some really talented clinicians who are also really good at connecting with people. It's not, lived experience isn't a prerequisite for connection. It can be something that you can draw from that can help, but yeah, I know clinicians who don't have lived experience who are still really good at connecting. And, yeah.
Yeah, one of the things I recently heard, because a lot of our models or our, you know, empirically supported treatments or empirically based treatments are often created by therapists or in a lab setting or,
right.
you know, maybe even in front of a green screen, who knows, right? And it's sort of like, well, there really shouldn't be any empirically based treatment that doesn't have the perspective of lived experience in it.
Yeah.
Like if I give you, what does it feel like to go through our intake? What does it feel like? What is your experience of that? And that's another piece that I'm really hoping we can do more of in our field, is really take the feedback from people that have gone through and, you know, what parts felt good and what parts felt icky. And not that everybody has the same experience and, you know, we should change everything because of one person's experience, but there's a lot of value there.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think, you know, I hope to see people with lived experience being involved in research and providing services, and just a shift to valuing the lived experience like you're talking about, to see that it is valuable and that, you know, it doesn't really make sense to design a service for somebody and not include like the people who are receiving it, and, you know, yeah. I think a lot of, I think we're moving in that direction, I hope. And,
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate that. And it's not either or.
Mm-hmm.
You know, maybe for some people, one is better than the other and they only need one or the other, but that both are needed for many people and both have, you know, both peer support and more traditional clinical services, but, you know, they can be better together.
Yes.
Right? I think that's what you experience on the ACT team.
That's what I've learned or come to believe, because, you know, maybe before this I was a little bit like, you know, peer support is really what's helped me, and that's, you know, there can, you know, like clinical work that's bad, but it's not good or bad. It's just different. It's just two different ways of supporting somebody, and they're both equally valid and useful and helpful.
Right, and if we collaborate and work together, it might even be more effective than one or the other. Which, and that's part of why, you know, Greater Nashua Mental Health does really try as much as we can to collaborate and be supportive of HEARTS, our local peer support agency here in Nashua.
Yeah.
You know, as much as is appropriate for us to, right? Because we also don't want to come in with our clinician and say, oh, we'll do this, because it's not our place. So we certainly have to be careful. But, you know, how do we collaborate in a way that lets both models be the best they can be? Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, I love it.
I think just being with each other, just being in community with each other is going to help with that.
And learning more about, you know, how we got here on both sides. I think for people understanding that there is research based behind RAP and IPS and you know, all the peer support models, I think it just helps the more people know and the more we communicate about it.
Right.
I've thoroughly enjoyed just talking about peer support with you and your journey. And one of the questions I always try to end with, though, is like, what's something in your life or something you do currently that empowers you to be the best you can be?
Going to meetings, going to recovery meetings, playing the guitar, listening to music, meditating, exercising.
You've got a list of them.
Sorry, I couldn't pick just one.
Oh, no, that's great, because I think that's a perfect example of maybe there isn't just one.
Yeah.
Maybe, you know, to really have the best mental wellness you can have, maybe you do need a list to choose from, and maybe some work better today and others work better another day. I mean, have you ever had that kind of experience?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. So what are your plans for today? What are you going to do to deep breathe after having been on this show?
Oh man. Well, I'm heading back to work after this to finish some things up, but actually I'm going to meet a friend and we're going to go for a walk after I get
work.
off. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Excellent. Yeah. There's definitely a lot of good stuff about being out in nature and
absolutely
movement too. So, well, it has been a delight to have you here, and I'm so thankful and grateful that you joined us as one of our first peers at Greater Nashua officially, and you know, now we've got so many more. So we thank you for taking on that burden, though you say it's a blessing, of helping us figure it out.
Well, thank you. I'm really grateful to be here and to have had this experience with you.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching the Empower Hour with Greater Nashua Mental Health. We'll see you next time. And for now, have an empowered day.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.